obviously I think that they give a sense of, especially where we see Elwood at the years, but the one sequence that really, and I don't even know if it's a question as much as just a comment, because I'm astounded by the moment in the film very early on where Elwood is in the window of the department store. We see all the TV shows, the TVs turn on Martin Luther King's speech. The first time I watched it, wasn't quite clear what I was looking at because my eyes were adjusting to it. The image of Elwood kind of revealed himself to me very slowly in a very beautiful way. This time I think I was expecting it, and I was like, there he is, I see him. But I'm curious about—
Can I add something really quick?
Yeah.
I look at Nick because we like slowly faded Elwood in literally on screen, so that he was transpiring to you was something that we did. It wasn't your eyes, it actually happened, which is kind of cool.
Well, I think because I knew he was coming the second time I saw him earlier. But no, I think that was a really amazing moment. But I guess to set that into a question, how did you use mirrors and reflections as a storytelling device, as not just, something to catch the light, to show another part of the image?
Yeah, I think that, it's a funny thing in the movie where I think that, if I'm allowed to pontificate for a moment as like a viewer, I think that something I have been learning over the course of watching this movie is what the point of view for me does is that in traditional cinema, you look at a close-up. And in the close-up, you kind of see from a great actor their performance, like what are they doing with their face? And you read, okay, well, what is Elwood feeling? He's feeling this because I'm seeing on the face of the actor him experience some emotion. And then that is what's telling me what is happening to Elwood. And I think in this movie, because you don't have that information, you're kind of unmoored. And so then looking at the image, it's less of, oh, what's Elwood feeling, but more like, okay, since I don't have access to that information, like, what's Elwood feeling based on where his eyes going around the room? And then I think secondarily, almost very quickly, the question that comes up where it's like, well, since I don't know and I can't say for sure what Elwood's feeling, man, what would I feel in this situation? What would it feel like for me to have a cane poked into my stomach and the small injustice of that moment to just be a Tuesday? To not really be a particular moment, but something that still sticks out. How would that feel? And I think that does do something different to an audience member interpreting an image within the context of cinema. That, I think is different. And I think when it gets back to that idea of the reflection is like, I think that each moment that RaMell kind of mobilizes these reflections, or almost these moments where you're checking back in on like, oh, that's what I look like in this story. And again, I think that it's like, it's not that different than traditional cinema. I'd say it's almost like 2 degrees off axis, but I think that small difference in being 2 degrees off axis kind of fundamentally changes how our brain interprets the image. Because again, it's still saying the thing of like, oh, that's what I look like. Instead of, oh, that's what the character looks like. It's like, oh, I've been seeing, like, I think that for me, it's still so revelatory what Nick and RaMell did when you play that scene back in the cafeteria where you get to see Ethan for the first time is like, oh, that's who I am. Like, and I think not to be hyperbolic, but it gives me the same kind of feeling in 2001 Space Odyssey when the boat is thrown in the air and you cut to the space station of like, oh, these are the same primates. Like, finally, we're getting to see why I was watching 40 minutes of apes is to understand that they're just humans.
Right.
And I think that there is something that felt revelatory to me when I watched it, of kind of getting to see Ethan when I've weirdly been in his body for like, 30 minutes of the movie up until that point.
Right. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, RaMell, you and Jocelyn were so specific and spoke so like, I don't know, you had thought about so many layers of when we went to those reflections and why, and how they represented these specific moments of self-understanding or a changing in Elwood's kind of understanding of himself. Anyway, not to speak for you, but it was like, I just remember how clearly it was like, that's there exactly for these reasons, and not there was an intuitive part of it that made sense, but it was very clearly planned that way.
Ethan and Brandon, I'm very curious about your collaboration, I would say,